Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net talking about a subject which I kind of said I wasn't going to really talk about, or I didn't mention that I was previously going to talk about it. But after having some time to look at the facts and after reviewing a lot of stuff recently, particularly some stuff that I may have reposted on my website based upon some stuff that I'm going to talk about later, and I know I'm being vague, but this is kind of how I do my build-up for my big reveal. Even though you're probably seeing the title of this project at the very top of your screen right now, today we're going to be talking about Silent Hill and the Silent Hill franchise. This is the Silent Hill podcast. My name is Maniac, for those of you guys who don't know. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. If you're coming back after a nice long lapse, it's been a while since we published a podcast, I totally admit that, and I just want you guys to know that there are other ideas for podcasts in development right now as well. There's no shortage of properties and stuff that I may want to look into, or actually there is at least one or two podcasts that I actually want to do basically an update for them. There's at least two podcasts that I can think of off the top of my head that enough time has passed since I originally published them that I kind of wanted to do a follow-up to new information with new stuff that's happened in the years prior, because I've been doing this podcasts for quite a while now. So if you have any comments about stuff that you'd like to see me cover, or any podcasts that I've done in the past that you think you'd like to see me do an update on, feel free to post a comment below. I will be more than happy to read it. So this podcast is going to be slightly different than a previous podcast. We're still going to be talking about the franchise. We're still going to be talking about my history with the franchise. But this is going to be a podcast more of regret than anything else, actually. Regret that I wasn't involved in the franchise at earlier points. And there are going to be a lot of reasons as to why that is the case. But this may be a podcast including a lot more regret that I didn't get a chance to actually look into these games back in the day, even though I had the opportunity to. And so there's going to be a bit of that. There's also going to be less talk about game development in this case, because as far as I can tell, while there is information available out there, how do I put this? This isn't the kind of game, these weren't the cases where I usually, like I said, most of my information comes from following games during its development, reading news about it, that sort of thing, basically. And because, like I said, I wasn't really reading the news about these games as they were coming out. I have actually anecdotes and things like that with the games, but I wasn't really there. And at that point, when you want to come up to detailed histories about the franchise, trust me, there are a lot of people out there that are a lot better at it than I am. There are a lot of YouTube videos that really go into depth about the history behind games development, and I will be talking about and recommending channels that would certainly be able to do a better job talking about the history of a franchise than I could, at least for this particular franchise. And I will be mentioning that in just a little bit. But I kind of want to start talking about my exposure to this franchise and my experiences with this franchise. Most of all, I actually went through, before I started this podcast, before I started recording, I actually went through notes, and I was thinking to myself, I've only played so many of the games. I haven't played all of them, and I know that's a regret. Usually I try to play as many of the games as possible, but in some cases that's just not possible for me to do for several reasons. And I'll go into those several reasons when I get to the end of this podcast. But for the most part, I wanted to talk about this franchise, my experiences with the franchise, and what I thought of the games that I played, which I think will make a very interesting podcast, certainly. So, with all that out of the way, what do you say we get started with this Silent Hill podcast? Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. So, my first exposure to Silent Hill, essentially the existence of Silent Hill, if you will, came from after I played Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1 for the first time. The first Silent Hill game was a PlayStation 1 was at least, I believe, a PlayStation 1 exclusive when it was first released, because I don't remember seeing a PC version of it back in the day. So, I was obsessed, absolutely, in the late 90s, I was absolutely obsessed with the game Metal Gear Solid. And those of you who may have listened to my Metal Gear Solid podcast, I played the hell out of that game. I am not kidding, I actually bought a PS1, or I actually got a PS1, just so I could play the original Metal Gear Solid. And literally when I got my PlayStation 1, the only games I really played on it were Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid VR missions. And I still felt that was a purchase, the PlayStation purchase, I should say, well done, certainly. So there's no regrets about that. So back in the day, I needless to say, if for anybody who might have picked up an original copy of Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation 1, and you look through the manual, you would see on the very back of that manual an advertisement for Silent Hill with the policewoman. I believe her name is Sybil. I believe it was Sybil that was on the back cover. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool, an upcoming game from Konami. Don't know if I'll see it on shelves, but that does look kind of cool. But even though I was obsessed with playing the PlayStation and Metal Gear Solid, I was still very much on the PC gamer mindset. I was still a member of the PC gaming master race. And so I ended up missing out on a lot. Even though I did play Metal Gear Solid, I still felt like I had missed out, just out of spite, if you will, a lot of games. And Silent Hill, the original Silent Hill, was certainly one of them. I think I might have seen it on store shelves briefly, and I don't think I had the money to pick it up at the time. I really don't. I don't think, if I hadn't picked it up, it was probably because I was still in high school. I wasn't really making money, and the money that I was making was probably going towards either computer upgrades, computer software, or just food. Just basically, things to do with my friends, movies, that sort of thing, going to the movies, that sort of thing. So, Silent Hill, if I remember correctly, was probably like $50 when it came out. I don't remember. I think my birthday had already passed by that point, which I had already gotten Metal Gear Solid 1 for. Christmas was not anywhere even remotely close to where it was, to where it was, and so I never could pick up the original Silent Hill. But the concept behind the game kind of interested me. Here was a game where you had a story, and a lot of people were talking about it, I'll be honest with you. Here's a story where it's about a guy trying to find his daughter in a haunted town. Harry Mason is trying to find his daughter, Cheryl. Along the way, he meets people like Sybil, the police officer, and it becomes clear to the player and to whoever it is that Harry obviously is supposed to be, that everything is not looking up and up in this town. The town is it's difficult to see, and there's monsters all over the place, all different kinds of stuff. What's causing this? What do the people that are still here intend? Is it for good? Is it for bad? Well, I'm not going to be doing any spoilers, so this is going to be as spoiler-free as possible, at least for the first game. I'm not going to be talking too much about this, but I just want you guys to say, even though I never picked up the game on its original PS1 release, I did pick up the original PS1 version digitally on the PlayStation Network when it was re-released on the PS3 and PSP. PS3 owners that were interested in PS1 games back in the day may remember that while the PSP, before the PlayStation Vita came out, Sony was re-releasing old PS1 games digitally. It's legitimate through the PlayStation Network. And those games could also run on the PlayStation Portable, and it was cross-buy. So if you bought just one PS1 game, whether you had a PSP or not, you could, if you did have a PSP, download it also on your PSP and play it as long as the PSP had controls. Now, this was amazing for a lot of reasons, because particularly, I had a PSP. I have a PSP. And I like taking my games on the go, and playing these old PS1 games on the go was amazing. I loved playing MGS VR missions on the PSP, for example. It was just perfect for that platform. But even though I really wanted to play the original Silent Hill portably, I did not like the control scheme that they had to compromise with, especially when it came to fighting the flying monsters in the town. I hated those flying monsters. They were so annoying to fight. I absolutely hated them. And while obviously the PlayStation, the DualShock 3 controller is pretty much a point-for-point recreation of the original DualShock with a couple of enhancements that you won't notice if you're playing a PS1 game, at the very least, the controls could transfer over, essentially. For the PlayStation Portable, on the other hand, it just didn't work for me. If you're going to play this game and you've got a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation Portable, play it on the PS3. I'm just going to say that right now. Just play it on the PS3. You're going to be happier with that. I could not use the controls. And this is after having played with the tank controls. Obviously, the game does use tank controls. Because I had already played Silent Hill 2 before I started using the Silent Hill 1 controls. And there was a learning curve, but I'll get into that when I start talking about Silent Hill 2. Yeah. So if you're going to play it, right now the best way to play it, I would say, would probably be download. If you don't have a copy of it, from what I've been told, PS1 versions go for very high prices on disc, which again I'll be talking about later. But yeah, just download it. If you still have a PS3, just download it on the PS3 off the PlayStation Network. You'll probably be happy with that version. So again, I know we're talking a little bit about regret here, because like I said, I never really played most of these games when they came out. Even though I had been exposed to the games when they were in the process of being released, I knew Silent Hill. You can't throw a rock by the early 2000s without knowing somebody who was talking about Silent Hill. My console-playing friends were all talking about the Silent Hill games. And again, while I was familiar with them, it was only in passing. I never played them. But several of my friends swore by them. And so, even though I wasn't playing them, I was keeping at least somewhat up to date with the new games, at least as they were coming out. When Silent Hill 2 came out, for example, the critics were just raving about it. Everybody was freaking loving this game. It had a huge fan support. Like, everybody online was talking about this game. From its... And again, I'm going to do more of a review of Silent Hill 2 when I talk about it later, but this was this was a big spike. This was like one of those games. When it came out, Silent Hill 2, when it later came out on the PS2, was just one of those games everybody who owned a PlayStation was talking about. Now, I didn't have a PS2 back then, at all. I bought the PS1 at the end of its lifespan. The PS2s, I may have talked about this at some point earlier, but PlayStation 2s at launch, you could not find any. The PS2 sold out almost immediately. It was the hottest selling console of that generation by far. And about the only person that had a PS2 that I knew was my cousin. And he was only using it to play the GTA games and Metal Gear Solid 2 at the time. So that just goes to show you just how much, yeah. He wasn't playing Silent Hill. He wasn't playing Silent Hill 2. So I didn't have a chance to play it back in the day. At least not at that point. Silent Hill 3 later comes out, and everybody's saying that it's a good game, but it's not as good as Silent Hill 2. Now, to me, that meant that Silent Hill 3 wasn't a good game. At least that's how I interpreted it at the time. I don't currently share those feelings. That was just misinformation that I've been given. A lot of people who told me that they liked Silent Hill, or at least a lot of people that I was reading about at the time, who really liked Silent Hill and really liked Silent Hill 2, for some reason said they didn't like Silent Hill 3, that Silent Hill 3 was a bit of a departure from Silent Hill 2. I took that as, maybe I shouldn't be interested, maybe I shouldn't bother looking into it that much. But still, I still felt like maybe Silent Hill 2 deserves a look. But again, I still didn't have a PS2, so what was I going to do about it? So enter E3 2004, which was the second E3 I ever attended. Konami was front and center. Back in that time, let me tell you something. For E3 2003 and E3 2004, especially E3 2004, Konami really did a good job. When it came to third-party publishers, like, Konami owned that E3. They really did. This is just from what I remember from having been there. I'm sure that some people would say, "Oh no, Sony owned that E3 or Nintendo owned that E3 or something like that." Some people could even argue that Microsoft owned that E3. But let's take those three out of... If you remove those three, big three, let's say you remove those big three, who was left, basically, to show stuff at that time, for the major publishers? You had EA, obviously. You had a bunch of other third-party independents that were there on the show floor, and you had Konami. And to me, when it came to E3 and show... Because what was Konami showing at the time? Oh, they were showing Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. Which, by the way, whenever they showed the trailer alone for that game, made traffic on the show floor just stop. Just from the trailer. People would actually stop on the show floor and actually start bunching around the show floor, basically stopping traffic moving around the booth, because Konami's was the first booth you saw when you entered that hall on that year. And people just stopped to watch that Metal Gear Solid 4 Metal Gear Solid 3 trailer. They also showed Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, which also had an amazing trailer. That was a GameCube game. That stopped. They also, by the way, had playable demos for Metal Gear Solid 3 on the show floor. But you know what else they were showing on the show floor at that time? Silent Hill 4: The Room. There were a lot of demos that were done and a lot of previews that were done for Silent Hill 4. I was actually remember coming back from E3 and seeing a lot of press for Silent Hill 4, particularly in the form of previews from that from that E3 demo. I have to admit, I didn't get a chance to get my hands on the Silent Hill 4 demo. Again, another regret. This is the podcast of regrets, I remind you. But I did get a chance to check out the booth, and I thought it was a pretty awesome booth that they had set up. I don't know if there are pictures available online or anything. There probably are, but I don't know if they've since been, whatever's hosting them has since been, they would be old pictures, certainly. But I remembered enjoying that. I remembered looking at that booth thing, and that was a pretty awesome booth. Konami overall that year had a pretty awesome booth, and that year they were showing MGS3 hands-on, and they were also showing Silent Hill 4: The Room, which looked to a lot of people to be a major departure from Silent Hill 2 and 3, but still interesting, and definitely to them felt like it was still a Silent Hill game, which, again, excited me. Eventually, the Silent Hill game, Silent Hill 4, came out, and at the time, I felt that the press was very negative. At least the public misconception of it was very negative. And I know that still continues on to this day, although I think that in the last couple of years, Silent Hill 4 has gotten a bit of a re-review, if you will, by critics. But again, I'm going to probably save that to the end. Right now, we're just keeping this to... I'm really not talking about the games. I'm more right now in this podcast. I still want to just talk to what was going on and how press for the games was intersecting me. Like I said, I kind of want to save thoughts about the game till later. Unfortunately, Silent Hill 4: The Room would be the last game that would be developed by Team Silent. Now, I know that probably was decided by Konami management. Although I have no insight into Sony management except for what I've read online. And what I've read online is probably no different than what you might have read online. Basically just news articles and anecdotes from, insiders and quote-unquote stuff like that. So how much of it can be attributed to fact? Well, if a lot of people are saying it, or a lot of different sources are picking up on different stuff, then I can attribute it to high probability. But I'm sure that many of you can dispel to rumors. But what we do know is that Silent Hill 4 was the last Silent Hill game developed by Team Silent. Having played the earlier Silent Hill games, I think that was a mistake. And I'm going to talk about that later. I think that Team Silent should have worked on more Silent Hill games. But again, we'll talk about that more when I start giving my final thoughts. So, moving on, there was this first Silent Hill movie. We're getting around 2006, about 2 years after Silent Hill 4 was released, or about a year or two after Silent Hill 4 was released. there were still some musings going on in the Silent Hill development. Konami had moved development to American studios who were working on new Silent Hill games, but Silent Hill was still a hot commodity at the time. Konami was still actively publishing games for it and also working on games for it, even though Team Silent had been disbanded by this point. And there was, of course, the Silent Hill movie, which at the time a lot of people really liked. And it still had Akira Yamaoka's, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, it still had the music of the Silent Hill games. It still used the music from Silent Hill's composer, which I thought was freaking awesome. Because having played the games, I loved his music. I really, really loved his music. And I'll talk about my favorite tracks in just a bit. But, well, what can we say about that? I never went to go see the original Silent Hill movie when it came out in theaters. And even though I was collecting DVDs at the time, I was very much a DVD purist. I'm a film buff. I will totally admit that I'm a film buff. I love movies, but more than that, I also love hearing stories about movies development. And part of the reason why I was so quick to jump on the DVD bandwagon was because I had found out that DVDs have the ability to include special features like feature-length documentaries on discs or feature-length director commentaries over the films. All that bonus features, featurettes, deleted scenes, all that recuts of the film, director's cuts. But for me, I felt that, especially given what things were doing at the DVD market at the time, I felt that it didn't make a lot of sense for me to purchase a DVD movie if all that was going to be included on the DVD was just the movie. Because I felt that, in all likelihood, a re-release was eventually going to come out with all the special features, which had happened in a lot of cases. A lot of times you'd get a movie that was released bare bones, and then a couple months to a couple of years later, you would get a re-release with a whole bunch of special features, and you'd be like, what? Oh, I got to rebuy it all over again. I was kind of, while I was getting money at the time, while I was making money at the time, I'm still pretty savvy with my money. I'm not going to just buy it bare bones. I wasn't just going to buy a bare bones DVD. I wanted special features. And to me, the Silent Hill movie did not include special features, so I wasn't going to buy it. And because of that, it was just not a movie I rented. For some reason, it was never posted on any, even though my parents subscribed to like movies on, like not movies on demand, but premium movie networks like HBO and stuff like that. I never saw it on like HBO. I don't know why. So, to this day, I've never seen Silent Hill. And that's a real shame because as far as I know, to this day, and I'm recording this in 2017, Silent Hill, at least the original Silent Hill, has never been released in a special edition form, at least not in the United States. It might have been released. I have heard that there is a director's commentary, and maybe you guys, if you guys have more information about this, then you certainly post a comment, but as far as I know, there has not. I have heard a story that there was this version of Silent Hill on DVD or Blu-ray that might have been released with a director's commentary, but not in the United States, as far as I know. At least not here. All the DVD versions I've seen here are all bare bones. So take for that what you will. There was, however, something else that was released at around the same time that Silent Hill, the movie, was released. A companion program. I don't really know what to call it. Most people kind of refer to it as a UMD movie. I don't think, as a person who has collected UMD movies, and I'm probably gonna I'm probably gonna be talking more about UMD movies in a different video. I wouldn't personally call this a UMD movie. I don't know what you would call this, but a companion disc exclusively for the Sony PSP, not a DVD, a UMD disc that's not a game, called, I believe, The Silent Hill Experience, was released for the Sony PSP, which included interviews, graphic novel, what are the animated graphic novels, animated versions of the graphic novels, exclusive content, behind-the-scenes information about the Silent Hill games, and the Silent Hill Expanded Universe, certainly. That did get released for the Sony PSP back in, I believe, around 2006. It's just, I don't know what to make of it. At around that, I don't know what Sony or Konami was thinking about that. I don't know. I really don't. That may require a little bit of background for those of you guys who don't own PSPs or didn't own PSPs back in the day. But Sony was actually trying to tout the UMD format, which is the exclusive physical format of the Sony PSP, as like this multi-purpose disc format. And it very well may have taken off, actually, had Sony not made two incredibly bad blunders. Just absolute blunders. I think the UMD format could have taken off. One was the fact that the last version of the Sony PSP that they released had no capacity to actually use the retail UMD discs. It was completely incompatible with UMD video discs and UMD game discs. There was no UMD drive. And yet they charged more for it than an original... So basically they charged $50 premium for what was essentially a crippled PSP. And it was called the PSP Go. If you are interested in a PSP, don't buy the PSP Go under any circumstances. Just buy a original model PSP and get a big memory stick with it. But yeah, one of the things that Konami released for the PSP back in the day was this thing called the Silent Hill Experience, which included all this stuff. Maybe that was supposed to be a companion disc to the Silent Hill movie that was released bare bones. I don't know, but that was kind of cool. I'm pretty certain that most of that content maybe they had worked on producing that content, but due to rights issues they couldn't include it on the disc, but they wanted to have it out in some format. And this was really before the takeoff of like high speed, this was before obviously streaming. Nowadays that probably be released as streaming video, but at the time that was a bit tougher to do. So yeah, go figure on that one. That was a little bit of an oddity. That really was a little bit of an oddity in gaming history. I do in fact have a copy of it, actually, shrink wrap still. I'm pretty proud of that one. As for other stuff that would be coming out, I remembered. Now, maybe this was at around the same time that Silent Hill Experience came out, but one of the games that everybody was really talking about at the time was Silent Hill Origins, or Silent Hill Zero, depending upon your region, which was a PSP prequel game to the original Silent Hill. The thing that I really liked about I haven't played it myself, but I have seen Let's Plays of it. I have seen people actually play it on the Sony PSP, so I am familiar with it, certainly, and its story. I remember saying to myself, after having played Silent Hill 2, which again I'll talk about later, thinking to myself, wow, that does look like Silent Hill 2. But it didn't, from what I've been told by a lot of critics, it didn't play like Silent Hill 2. A lot of people didn't like. Again, this was probably, this was after Silent Hill 4 came out, so, keep that in mind also. So this was being developed by an entirely new studio, and this was like a first game coming from like a first studio, basically. So probably were fans of Silent Hill, but weren't the original developers. So, but that was, like I said, for most people, they talked about that. I don't know. But it looked good. It really looked good on the PlayStation Portable from what I saw. And later it got re-released on the PlayStation 2. And most people I've talked to have argued that the PlayStation 2 version of it was probably superior. Again, I haven't played the PlayStation 2 version, so I can't comment. So there also was a Wii game that was released by an American studio called Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which was essentially a remake of the original Silent Hill game. From what I've been told, Silent Hill Shattered Memories is actually a pretty good game. I played through the opening of it. I actually have it on the Wii. I've been trying to play it on the Wii U. But there was, to me, some graphical issues, or I assume what I thought were graphical issues with the game, which I'll talk about later, but go figure. I am really deferring a lot of stuff here that I'm talking about later. So let me just fast forward a little bit, and let me talk about a couple of things. Just to fast forward. So like I said, I have to really talk a little bit more about how do I put this? I want to just go over more about the development and how development was impacting me before I really start talking too much about the games. So moving on, I want to fast forward to 2012, which is considered by many people, I consider it probably was considered as, like, from a marketing standpoint, the year of Silent Hill. So if there was considered to be a year of Silent Hill from a marketing perspective, it was that year. A lot of stuff came out. A lot of Silent Hill came out. In hindsight, it probably could be considered the last gasp of Silent Hill, the last true gasp of Silent Hill. But I thought I was around at that time. I was involved in that year, and I have some cool stuff I want to say about it. So I think that the year of Silent Hill kind of kicked off in threefold. By this point, by the time 2012 started, I was getting interested in Silent Hill. I was seriously getting interested in Silent Hill. Not only was I seeing the new re-releases for games like Silent Hill Origins or Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which were at the time where I was back into consoles. I obviously had a PlayStation 2. I had a PlayStation 3 at the time. I had the consoles. I was interested in picking up Silent Hill games new at that point. Also, I was seeing a lot of fan love being done for this game, particularly by two people online who I wanted to single out. I was really interested in Dina Natali's, who runs the YouTube channel Cybercat. I was really interested in her Silent Hill review. She had done really good in-depth reviews of Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4 at that point. And she had done a Let's Play of Silent Hill Shattered Memories that I just absolutely loved. Props to you, Dina. A lot of my research or a lot of my knowledge of Silent Hill came from your videos, so props to you for that. Another YouTube channel, or I should say another website that I really wanted to look into, who looked at Silent Hill from another perspective, was the guy Linkara, who runs the website atopthefourthwall.com. Now He reviews comic books, and throughout the first couple of Halloweens, he actually reviewed several Silent Hill comic book series, which, especially the first ones he did, he absolutely hated for several reasons, which I'll let him explain. My recommendation is certainly look up his YouTube channel or his website and check out his reviews of the Silent Hill comics, because he really just talked about them quite a bit. But to me personally, you could tell that he had a love for the franchise itself, which is probably why he didn't like the comics, at least the comics he was reviewing, as much as he possibly could have if the comics were of a different stake, or different quality, I should say. Or maybe that's why his standards were so high. I don't know, but he didn't like the comics, but he really did talk about the games itself, which again got me interested in maybe I should really look into playing the games. But you have to take into account that by 2012. All you could really find were the newer games. What I really wanted to do was finally go back and play all of the original Silent Hill games. The original 4 Silent Hill games, I should say. And of course, those were long out of print, and new copies of it, especially on Amazon, especially for Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 2, were kind of a bit too expensive for my taste. I was kind of hoping for like lower prices on them, or better deals on them. And that just wasn't possible at the time. A couple of years ago, I had a really nice weekend with an old friend of mine who I really don't talk to that much anymore. But they were an old school console gamer. Like, if you had named any of the most recognizable games, console games, whether it be PS2 games, GameCube games, from the horror genre over the early portion of that generation, this person had them. Like, you're talking about Ico, you're talking about Shadow of the Colossus, you're talking about Silent Hill 2, you're talking about Silent Hill 3, you're talking about that GameCube game that was made by Dennis Dyack. I can't remember its name on the top of my head, but it was made by the guy who made the Silicon Knights. It was a game made before It was Eternal Darkness, that's it. Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem for the GameCube. This friend of mine had all those games. All of them. And one weekend, we hung out. We spent the whole weekend together. Crashed my place, and I had a lot of the hardware that could play these games, but not the software. I never played Silent Hill 2. I never played Silent Hill 3 by that point. I never played Eternal Darkness. I never played Ico. I had played other games that this person had not played, but those were more recent games. And, well, essentially I said, hey, why don't you come over? I'll play those games. You can play these games. I've got the hardware. I've got the big screens. I've got the surround sound systems. I've got the PlayStations and the Xboxes. Let's hang out. And they did. They came. My friend came over. We spent the whole weekend. Basically, we played. I ended up playing through over the course of about a weekend, maybe 2 days. I think I played through all of Silent Hill 2 and all of Ico. And my friend pretty much played through most of, or I should say 90% to 95% of Alan Wake. Also played a little Fallout 3. Actually, they recommended I play Fallout 3, and I played Fallout 3 on their recommendation. I actually got a copy of Fallout 3 based on their recommendation for the Xbox. But that's neither here nor there. So, about a year or two before the release of Silent Hill HD Collection on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, I actually played through all of Silent Hill 2. And for those of you guys who have never actually played through a beloved game like Silent Hill 2 and are playing it for the first time, I recommend playing it the way I did, which is, yeah, you've got your hands on the controller. Yeah, it's on your system. It's your controller. It's your TV. It's your place. But you got a super fan there in the room with you. And no matter how confused you get, that super fan is going to help you through it. Now, I think this is the same reason, the feeling that I had, or of just how much fun I had playing this game with with my friend, the super fan. I think is I think kind of might be a reason why a lot of people like watching Let's Plays, especially Let's Plays done by people who know what they're talking about, people who have a love for the game that they're playing. And I hope someday that I could do a Let's Play of something. If I haven't already, I hope that, my Let's Play of like Alan Wake, for example, could get across just how much I loved Alan Wake and how much I knew about Alan Wake as I was playing it. But this to me was like amazing. And I don't know if I really say this to people, but I usually don't like the horror genre in general. And it's not just for games, but also mostly for movies. I don't like reading horror stories. I usually think they're pretty stupid. My sister used to read R.L. Stine books. I'd catch a couple pages of them, and I would just absolutely hate them. But like I said, no, it doesn't. If you enjoyed them, then more power to you. My sister kind of liked them a bit, and I know plenty of other people who did as well. But they just weren't my kind of. They just weren't something that interested me. I'm not the kind of person that would scream out when watching a horror movie in a movie theater, just how stupid the possible victims are for doing really stupid stuff. But I certainly think those things while I'm watching horror movies, and it's another reason why I hate movies like the remake of House of Wax. I remembered watching it with some friends of mine years and years and years ago and thinking, wow, if only that person stood their ground, they actually would survive. Oh, who did survive that movie? The people that stood their ground. So I would probably be the last, and also I get really, really squeamish about certain stuff. There were a couple of horror movies that I liked. I liked Event Horizon. God knows why I liked Event Horizon, but I liked that movie. I liked all the original. I liked the first two Aliens movies, and I found enjoyable things about at least the second two. Although it took repeat viewings to start enjoying the second two Aliens movies. I liked Predator and Predator 2, although I considered those to be like more action movies than scary movies, but those movies I thought were enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any problem watching Prometheus or the first Alien versus Predator movie or anything like that. Granted, you're probably saying, well, this person is a fan of certain things or has certain tastes. That's all fine. But when it came down to like a movie, just certain, certain scary movies. Just like I said, I think I might have seen Scream twice. The first time I liked it, the second time I hated it, and I haven't been able to watch it again ever since. That's just like I said, because then I started catching everything that was just stupid. So, or mistakes by the again, for me, I don't know, make your own opinions about that, but after a second viewing I kind of realized, yeah, but I could watch it at least. But for the most part I couldn't watch any of that stuff. But I said to my friend, this is going to be tough for me to play due to my, I have issues with horror, but I like games like Doom. I did. And my friend told me, don't worry, you're going to be okay. And I was. There were a couple of moments that got to me. And I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, you probably got what they were. Involving a guy with a certain shaped head. And his introductions, if you will. Yeah, what he was doing, but I mean, I feel like the experience that my friend didn't spoil anything for me. There was nothing spoiled, and the atmosphere. Oh God, the atmosphere. The tank controls took a lot of getting used to. I mean, again, I grew up on the PC. I never really played it. It controlled like an old school PC adventure game. The only difference is that I had a DualShock controller as opposed to a WASD combination or arrow keys. But it felt like I had arrow keys. But I got over it. Eventually I somehow got used to it. Don't ask me how. And I found a game with a lot of enjoyment. An incredible art style. A very gripping story that pulled me in. And kept me every moment thinking, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Who is this person? Who is that? What is this? What is their motivation? Oh God, that was so emotionally horrible. That was so difficult to take that moment. Oh, I don't like that person. Oh, now I like that person. Oh, it's hard for me to talk about this stuff without spoiling anything. And maybe in the future I might actually do a spoiler-filled analysis of any of this stuff. But if you ask me, if you want to see spoiler-filled analyses, just go to Dina Natali's review or something along those lines. Or there are other people online that can probably do or have done definitive reviews of these games that I don't think I could build upon much better. All I can talk about is my experiences playing them. And I cannot tell you how much enjoyment I had playing Silent Hill 2 with my friend. I can't. And it was all these years later, I still remember it fondly as a great memory. And I felt to myself, wow, I really should get into this franchise. I really should learn more about this franchise, get more involved in this franchise. And I don't know if it was 2012. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what happened first. Because I just can't. I can't remember what happened first. But I went on a bit of a Silent Hill buying spree around 2011, 2012. Might have even been 2013. I can't remember. But the point was to get my hands on as many Silent Hill games as I could for a reasonable price. The problem was that at that point, any Silent Hill games that were made by the original Team Silent their prices were just too unaffordable. Original Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3, Silent Hill 4. I prefer to get new copies of my games. I prefer to get shrink wrap copies because these are discs. Discs, when they're used, even if they're used by one previous owner, can come scratched as hell. Even just from one owner. I've seen people mishandle discs so badly it's not even funny. I don't trust used games because of that. And there's other reasons why. I'll talk about them probably after I finish talking about HD Collection. But because I was like, I want to see if I can get as many Silent Hill games as I can, new, shrink wrapped for a reasonable price. I don't care where I have to go for them. And so Newegg.com and Amazon.com did very well that summer, because that's pretty much where I went. And this was after, I think Downpour was definitely out by this point. I remember Silent Hill Downpour. Maybe I'm jumping ahead a bit. Maybe I'm jumping a little too far ahead, because like I said, Downpour was out and I haven't even had a chance to talk about the HD collection yet. But this was probably around the time Downpour was out, because I remember getting a copy of Downpour new from like Newegg for like $15 when everybody else was selling it from like $50 to $60. And it was a legit copy. Newegg had probably just had a lot of copies and they were trying to get rid of them, so they put them on sale for cheap. Newegg likes to do that occasionally. So yeah, I got a copy of Silent Hill Downpour. I got a copy of Silent Hill Homecoming. I haven't talked much about Silent Hill Homecoming for this podcast, and I totally acknowledge that. There's actually a reason why I haven't really talked about Silent Hill Homecoming that much, and that's because I don't remember really seeing anything about the game when it was in development. I don't remember really any press going on for it. I remember somebody telling me, it might have been my friend who I was playing Silent Hill 2 with, had mentioned Silent Hill Homecoming and had mentioned that even though it was being done by a different studio and a different team, that Akira Yamaoka was still doing the music for it, which they thought was really good idea. So maybe that was like the only time before. Obviously, after Homecoming came out, I had seen the reviews of it, which, from what I could tell, were all pretty negative. Obviously, there were guys like Yahtzee who just hated it, but there were other people that were doing reviews of it that still, to this day, really didn't like it very much. Whether they had issues with the combat system, whether they had issues about the designs of the characters, they had issues with the story, issues with the misuse of themes. So when Homecoming came out originally, all I really remember are the reviews, and I remember the reviews being pretty negative. That having been said, in my buying spree, I still did pick up a copy of Homecoming. I also picked up Silent Hill Origins, particularly for the PSP. I don't know why specifically I got the PSP version. I guess I just assumed... I know there was a PS2 version released at that time, but I think there were more new copies of the PSP version available. I had a PSP. I knew that the PSP version of it was the original version, which to me was like, okay, the later versions were like I considered ports, I guess. I don't know. So I remembered picking up Silent Hill Origins for the PSP. I also remember picking up the Silent Hill Experience on PSP as well, which to me felt more collector's item than games, but I got a decent deal for it, so I couldn't pass that up. And I think the only one that I can remember that was a bit tougher to get my hands on, I don't remember if I had to go through a third-party reseller, if I had to go to somewhere else, but it wasn't a lower price on it, was Silent Hill Shattered Memories for the Wii. That was a bit tougher to get my hands on, or a bit more expensive, I should say. I had a whole lot of games that I paid for. I think Silent Hill Shattered Memories for the Wii was probably the most expensive. I don't know why. So, neither here nor there. If you want to see me, I think I did unboxing videos for some of this lot. So, if you go through my YouTube channel and like the much earlier videos, probably from like videos from like 2012 or so, you can find me unboxing the shipments that I got where I got deals on those games. And yeah, but unfortunately, copies of any of the games made by Team Silent were just not available. But on the other hand, Konami by that point had already announced that they were working on porting Silent Hill 3 and Silent Hill 2 to the HD consoles, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. And I just figured, hey, I'll just pick up HD Collection, the Silent Hill HD Collection in March, and that'll satisfy me I'll have Silent Hill 2, I'll have Silent Hill 3, and I'll be able to finally play Silent Hill 3. So now I think it's time for me to really start talking about what is essentially the year of Silent Hill, at least in my opinion, 2012. For me, that year kicked off with the release of Silent Hill HD Collection, even though I don't know if that was what was released first. I honestly can't remember. Konami had a lot of stuff going on that year. There were 3 major events, which I kind of talked about, that was all happening very close to each other. They intended to release Silent Hill HD Collection, Silent Hill Downpour, and Silent Hill Book of Memories all in the same month. And later that summer, they were planning on releasing Silent Hill Revelations 3D as the movie. So, big deals going on all around. A lot of people thought this was a really bad mistake. I looked on a lot of people, and they all said they thought that it was a very bad idea for Konami to be releasing all these Silent Hill games back to back. Knowing Konami's management, I am not surprised, given it's clear to me after, and I'm going to make some more comments about this later on, that I don't think management knew what they were doing, and I still don't. But needless to say, I agree with those sentiments that it was a bad idea. And needless to say, Silent Hill Book of Memories did not get released in that month. It was delayed at least a couple more months. So the Vita game did get delayed a bit. So I've been putting this off for a while, probably because I don't know how people are going to respond to this, about my thoughts about the Silent Hill HD collection. I cannot really put into words how much of a disappointment that was. And in order for me to explain why I was so disappointed in the Silent Hill HD collection, I gotta say that up until that point, HD collections had been done several times over. And I had enjoyed many of the HD collections that were being released up until that point. Just a couple that I was thinking about off the top of my head. That had been released up to that point. Well, let's get the first one I can think of that was released was probably the God of War collection, which included God of War 1 and God of War 2, both originally PS2 games for the PS3. They ran better on the PS3. They looked better on the PS3. But yet all the gameplay and all the special features were all intact. So, and there was a demo code released with it for anybody that wanted to play the demo for God of War 3. So it was not only a great re-release, well made, but it was well marketed. Another one that I can think off the top of my head that I thought was just the best ever was the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, which was also, by the way, published by Konami. It was done by, I think it was Blue Point. I think Blue Point did it. And that game was amazing. That took in my opinion, 2 of the best PS2 games. And they ran well. They ran better than the original versions. They had all the special features. They had more special features in some cases. All of that was intact. It was fantastic. Another one that I can think of off the top of my head, Ico and Shadow of the Colossus HD collection, which not only included both games, it included the European version of Ico, which was a superior version, which was never released in the United States. They included better lighting, better graphics, and it also included behind-the-scenes documentary videos for the upcoming game, The Last Guardian, which the team had been working on for quite a while, which has only been released within the last year. So yeah, a lot to say. Really a lot to say there. And I was thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be fantastic. By that point, we knew that originally we had found out from the HD collection that they were going to include new voiceover acting. But the comments for Silent Hill 2 and probably Silent Hill 3, and I was thinking to myself, well, that's not a bad. That kind of sucks, because I remember playing Silent Hill 2 with the original voice acting, and they had recast pretty much everybody, and I thought to myself, that might not. But the fans had complained enough, and so Konami decided to relent, and they included the original voice acting, and so I'd assumed that meant they were going to include the original voice acting for both Silent Hill games. So my anticipation for this was very high. And then I picked up the Silent Hill HD collection day one, which is not something I usually did for an HD collection. Popped it in my PlayStation 3, and the disappointment started almost immediately. I started playing Silent Hill 2, even with the original voice acting. And I could tell that there was something wrong with it. It had a huge patch to download day one, which I thought was actually a good thing. Probably, I thought, maybe some frame rate optimizers or something like that. But no, it didn't optimize frame rate at all. Performance in both Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3 were beyond terrible. Even with the original voice acting of Silent Hill 2 and the Born from a Wish standard, the bad frame rate, the buggy effects. If Silent Hill 2 wasn't one of the best games ever, I can imagine that the fallout from that HD collection would have been much worse. Because at the very least, they did port over, the environments. The environments were ported over, the effects. I mean, it still ran like garbage, let's be honest. It ran like garbage on both. And I thought for myself, is this because I'm playing on the PS3? Maybe the Xbox 360 runs better? I heard the Xbox 360 game runs even worse. So what am I to say about that? Or looks even worse? In fact, they actually had they would have needed to have patched it even further. They thankfully could patch the PS3 edition. They weren't going to patch the 360 version. They decided, no, we could patch it, but we decided not to. So the first controversy was, well, are you going to issue refunds to people who bought the 360 version, which you admit is buggy, and you admit is not going to fix? And they did. But only to the day one adopters, the people that had purchased the game and could prove that they had purchased the game before they made that announcement. But the refunds were in the form of, I guess they were giving out whatever games they had in storage out back or something. And, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't sound like that bad a deal, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's possible that Konami could have had leftover copies of Silent Hill 2: The Room on PS2 or Xbox that they might have been willing to keep. I don't know. Besides Silent Hill 4: The Room. On the bright side, at least, I did still have a copy of Silent Hill 2 that I could play all I wanted in widescreen. Forget about the fact that the performance was terrible for a second. It still is. Silent Hill 2 still is a fantastic game. It's an amazing game. And even though, oh my God, there's no question, the PS2 version, with the re-released PS2 version, the greatest hits version on PS2 is undoubtedly the best version of the game by far. It's still a great game. And even with the lost frames from Silent Hill 2, I still played the hell out of that HD collection version of it. Now, I don't know why I didn't play Silent Hill 3 part of the HD collection at first, but I kind of deferred playing, I guess because I felt that my experience playing Silent Hill 2 HD was so bad because the HD collection version of it was so buggy. I didn't have any background experience playing Silent Hill 3 really, so I figured that if I was to play it, it was just going to be a poor experience, and because I didn't have the good experiences playing it, that it wouldn't be able to hold up. Because I fully expected there to be just as many issues with Silent Hill 3 HD as there were for Silent Hill 2 HD. So I kind of deferred playing it for a while, but not too long. At around this time, I started seeing the announcement for Universal's release for Silent Hill 3D Revelations. Silent Hill Revelations 3D. Which was originally getting an IMAX release, or I guess it was getting an IMAX adaptation, or port, or whatever you want to call it. Conversion, that's it. And it was going to get an IMAX conversion and a major Hollywood release, essentially. And I was actually, of all people, interested to see it. I don't know why I was interested in seeing it, but I guess probably because I was on that Silent Hill kick I was talking about at the time. And even though the HD collection was bad, because of obvious reasons, I still had Silent Hill 2. I mean, it was still Silent Hill 2. I could still play it. And so I was very happy with that, at least. So I was really interested in watching Silent Hill Revelations. Now, unfortunately, that movie was basically only in IMAX theaters for about a week. I think I remember it was released on IMAX a week before some other major, like, bigger IMAX release was getting released. And the theaters here, the IMAX theater we have here only has one screen. We only have one IMAX theater here that has only one screen. So once they decide they're going to switch movies, that's all they can show. They can only show one movie on it. And so, yeah, so I didn't get a chance to see it on an IMAX screen. But I did get a chance to see it on a regular, I did see it on a regular screen. And if you go through my YouTube archive to about 2012 or so, I know that's pretty far back, a couple hundred videos ago, then you'll see that I actually did have a review of it. I went to go see it with my friend Twitch, and we both went to go see it in 3D. So I'm sure you guys probably want to hear my opinion about the Silent Hill 3D movie, Silent Hill Revelations. I know that there are a lot of diehard Silent Hill fans, especially Silent Hill fans that like the first Silent Hill movie, that probably would want to hear my opinion about it. I have to admit a couple of things. One, when I saw the movie for the first time, I had only played Silent Hill 2 by that point. I was familiar with Silent Hill. I was familiar with what was going on, obviously, and I could follow the movie, no problem. But I wasn't a diehard loyalist Silent Hill fan through and through. I wasn't. That having been said, I enjoyed the movie. I know I'm probably in a minority about that. From what I've been told, the vast majority of critics and fans really didn't like the movie. From what I've read, and again, this is just from what I read on the IMDb, the director of Silent Hill Revelations 3D wasn't happy with it. The final cut that ended up on screen. And if you're, like I said, and I've seen the descriptions, I've seen the shot by shots and the take by takes, and I've seen particularly I would recommend checking out Phalus's review of it, who basically goes almost. I specifically remember seeing his review of it, going scene by scene as to why Silent Hill 3 worked and why this movie did not. That having been said, I still found it enjoyable to watch once you get past the jump scares. I got to admit this. The first 20 minutes is just plagued by jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. And there's nothing I hate more than jump scares. I have to admit also, I really do hate horror films. I know I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to make that clear. I do not like horror films at all, and yet I still found something to enjoy with Silent Hill Revelations, so go figure on that one. Maybe it was the fact that I really liked Adelaide Clemens, Kid Harington, even though Kid Harington was playing a character that was completely different than how he was in the game. And I also really like Sean Bean, so maybe it's because I just really like the cast that they cast, yet obviously including... oh God, what was the actress that played the big baddie? I can't remember her name off the top of my head. The girl that played Trinity in the Matrix movie, Carrie-Anne Moss. I liked her. I like them all as actors and actresses. I think that they're great. So maybe that's why I enjoyed the movie. I don't know. If you want to see a fuller review of it, I still do have a review of, at least with my initial thoughts after seeing a 3D showing of it at my local theater on my YouTube channel, so you could check that out if you're interested. If not, that's not a big deal. So moving on, like I said, for me, the movie was what kicked off the start of what was going to be, or I should say, the release of Silent Hill HD Collection probably kicked off the start of the 2012 year of Silent Hill. But it got cemented for me, particularly because of the movie. Because I picked up Silent Hill HD Collection. I saw Silent Hill Revelations 3D in theaters. I later did pick up the Blu-ray for it. I was very happy with even though the Blu-ray was bare bones, I'm pretty certain that's never going to get a re-release, I don't think. And plus, it did come with a digital copy, so that wasn't too bad. But yeah, let's say more about things. I kind of want to fast forward a little bit. I'm kind of torn right now whether I want to talk about the rest of the year or whether I want to talk about my thoughts about the games that I've played. I know I've given some of my thoughts, particularly about Silent Hill 1, and certainly about Silent Hill 2, but I want to talk about Silent Hill 3. And I have to admit that the version of Silent Hill 3 that I played was part of the HD collection, so I kind of held off my thoughts about talking about my review of Silent Hill 3 because I wanted to wait until... Because I played Silent Hill 3 after seeing Silent Hill Revelations 3D. And I just want to get this out there. I just want to say something about this. I like Silent Hill 3 just as much as I like Silent Hill 2. Now, I know I did not have the benefit, and I don't have the benefit, of playing the original Silent Hill 3 on PlayStation 2 or PC. The non-HD collection, because unlike Silent Hill 2 HD, which added features that weren't in the initial Silent Hill 2 release, Silent Hill 3 HD collection took away features. And that, there were a lot of features that were in the original version of Silent Hill 3 for PS2 that were not included in the HD collection, particularly a lot of the extra costumes. And not all the costumes were removed. I admit this. Most of the unlockable costumes were still there, particularly like the superhero costume and a couple of others that were game related, that were original costumes. Did stay, but Silent Hill 3 came with extra t-shirts for gaming-related magazines and gaming-related websites that were huge fans of that were big proponents of Silent Hill. There was a GameSpy shirt, which went by the password I am Leet in LeetSpeak or something. And to me, that just defined GameSpy. I have a huge soft spot for GameSpy in my heart. A huge, enormous GameSpy filled hole in my heart ever since that company dissolved. But and all that was gone. It was like they never existed, and that was just so disappointing. That all of those shirts were removed. But that's not what you want to hear me talk about. That's a complaint about the HD collection. You guys probably want to hear more about what I felt about the game itself. And like I said, having gotten used to playing Silent Hill 2 by this point, I must have played Silent Hill 2 at least a half a dozen times before I even picked up Silent Hill 3. And by half a dozen times, I mean half a dozen times total, both amongst the PS2 and the PS3 version. I was straight with the controls. I was straight with the inventory system. I was down. I had a laydown of what the town looked like and everything. And I enjoyed Silent Hill 3 just as much as I enjoyed Silent Hill 2. I still lamented the fact that there was a lot of stuff not included in the HD collection, like the original voices and the t-shirts I talked about. But for the most part, I enjoy, as a game itself, as its own game, just as from a game perspective, I enjoyed Silent Hill 3 as much as I enjoyed Silent Hill 2. I really liked its story. I really liked its unique characters. I really liked that it was a follow-up to the original Silent Hill and that it made references to earlier games, which is not something I really saw in Silent Hill 2. I thought it had its emotional ups and emotional downs. And it had some incredible scenes with some incredible music by Akira Yamaoka. Just amazing. For me, some of my favorite songs, my God, will be here all day if I started listing out favorite songs from Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3. But let's try it. Obviously, theme of Laura from Silent Hill 2, that goes without saying. For Silent Hill 3, obviously the opening theme. For Silent Hill 3, for the title sequence, which name just escapes me. The song that's playing during the car sequence, and I want to talk a little bit about that car sequence. There's a scene in the middle of the game. It's kind of like the bridge. I consider it like the bridge of the game where Heather is being taken by the detective to Silent Hill, and they're having a conversation. It's basically... The reason why that scene exists is it's probably, in one way, it's a loading screen, but in another way, it's really supposed to be, how do I put this? It's supposed to be exposition for the people that hadn't played previously. But it's so well written and so well acted that you just completely forget about it. You don't even think about it. And maybe it's the music. For all I know, it could just be the music of that scene. Now, there is a supercut of that scene done. Dina Natali did a great supercut of that scene, where she took the scene and she intercut it with not just obviously footage from Silent Hill 3, from where the scene is, with the music, but she intercut it with scenes from Silent Hill 1 where applicable. And as somebody that was just getting into Silent Hill lore and Silent Hill fandom, props to Dina for that, because that was just it. I remember just being on the edge of my seat. Not even my computer chair, because I don't even watch YouTube videos on my computer. I watch them on I watch my YouTube videos on a big screen TV, 1080p. And that to me was like, that's why. I could just tell the love there. And I guess some of that fandom kind of bled over to me, because I remember when I saw the scene in the game, I was just on the edge of my seat. Like, I couldn't wait to keep playing. I was really loving it. And I did. I loved Silent Hill 2. And Silent Hill 3. I love Silent Hill 3. So, you're probably asking yourself, okay, you talked about Silent Hill 3. You talked about why you liked it so much. You still like the movie. Yeah, I still like Silent Hill Revelations 3D. Not as much as I like the game, obviously. But I still found enjoyable things about it. Like I said, probably it was the acting that I enjoyed the most. The effects were pretty good in a lot of cases, too. But there's two other games that were released, and one major event that was released in 2012 also for the year of Silent Hill. One was, of course, Silent Hill Downpour, which chronologically was probably the last... No, it probably wasn't. But Silent Hill Downpour came out first. It's probably the last HD console Silent Hill game. And Silent Hill Book of Memories for the PlayStation Vita, which, ironically enough, I still don't have a PlayStation Vita. Even though I do have a couple of PlayStation Vita games, if Sony ever decides to actually port games like port games like what do you call it, to the PlayStation TV. I may end up picking up a PlayStation TV if they ever just bother to port the Silent Hill Book of Memories or even Uncharted Golden Abyss. I would pick those up day one. And I would have picked up a PlayStation TV. But for me, the PlayStation Vita was always it's just too expensive for me to pick up. I can't afford it. It's just too expensive. It to me, and that's really unfortunate, because I was one of the first people to get my hands on the PlayStation Vita. I was actually one of the first, when it was first announced as the PlayStation Vita. I was there at E3 2011 with my hands on that console, and I thought this thing is going to be great. But the price point was just far too high, and I don't think there was enough games to... I just don't think... to me, there just wasn't enough games that were exclusive to the platform that justified that price. I'm really sorry to say that. If the handheld was cheaper, like it was like $100 or $150, yeah, definitely. But I don't think that thing ever dropped past $200 officially. And now they don't even really manufacture it anymore, so I can't really comment. I never saw dumping on it, meaning like price dumping. I never saw retailers really trying to get rid of it. So, say for that what you will. I will probably pick up a copy of Book of Memories if I find a copy of it in the wild for a low price. But my friend Twitch actually has a Vita. He freaking loves it. You've seen his reviews of it, I'm sure, on my website. But he really liked... he does have Book of Memories. He liked Book of Memories. Me, I haven't played it. Nor have I played Silent Hill Downpour, unfortunately. Although I have seen a walkthrough of the game, and I have seen a Let's Play of... I have seen a Let's Play of it. I have seen a review of it, so I do know what happens in it. From what I was told by a lot of people, Downpour looked like it was a step in the right direction. And I did like that there was a Downpour nod at the end of Silent Hill Revelations 3D. But, yeah... It just, to me, it felt like... gotta go with Team Silent here. I gotta stick with. I mean, like, for me, there's the Team Silent Hill games, and then there's the Silent Hill games that are developed by other companies. And for me, Downpour, while a lot of reviews of it said it was certainly better than Homecoming, it still wasn't as good as the previous games. It still wasn't better than the previous games. Now, again, I've seen comments about that before, and I've disagreed with them. I saw people say that Silent Hill 3 isn't as good as 2, and that kind of put me off for years. But after playing Silent Hill 3, I enjoyed it just as much as 2. I saw for a lot of time people were talking badly about Silent Hill 4. But, that has since, I think, gotten a bit of a revival. Certainly around the time HD Collection came out, I remember a lot of people saying, you got to put 4 with that. Or you got to have 4 with that. So, say for that what you will. It would be nice to see if Konami even remotely cared about their fans and wanted to make some money. What I think they should just do is they should do what they did with Metal Gear and simply just reprint the games, particularly the first 4. I think that Konami would make a killing. And even though those games obviously can't be run on modern consoles unless you had like a PS2 hanging around, who cares? I mean, seriously, who cares? I'm sure that there are a lot of people who still have PS2 somewhere that would love to get their hands on these games and play them on their old PS2s. So go take for that what you will. I know that Square a while ago reprinted a lot of their original PS1 and PS2 games, with the exception of Final Fantasy VII. From what I was told, Final Fantasy VII was not reprinted, nor I don't think Final Fantasy Tactics was reprinted for PS1, but I could be wrong on that one. And that's why I think that Amazon is still selling them for pretty reasonable prices online, so go figure for that one. But I think if Konami doesn't want to make games anymore, and if they don't want to make games anymore, okay, you know what? I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. I'll talk about this later. That's more for the future. The last major event that happened for the year of Silent Hill, after the release of Silent Hill Book of Memories, a couple months afterwards, was for Halloween 2012. In Halloween 2012, for pretty much every Halloween, Universal Studios, both the Universal Studios in Florida and the Universal Studios in California, hosts a Halloween event called Halloween Horror Nights. They've been doing it for at least 2 decades now by my count. It's a really cool event where they build mazes that are kind of themed on different things, and they change it up every year to scare people. I've never gone to a Halloween Horror Nights before, but I have gone to I remember in 2003 I went to Knott's Berry Farm during Halloween, where they were calling it Knott's Scary Farm. And from what I was seeing from the Halloween Horror Nights, it was basically like that. It was just, rethemed and with different themes and stuff like that. So I totally get that. I would totally do that. And I'm not a person that likes haunted houses, but I would totally have done. I remember saying I wanted to do that so badly. I thought that would have been so awesome to do. But unfortunately, this was 2012. I didn't have income. I had no way of traveling down to Florida or to California to see it. So I felt like I missed out on what would have been a major event, because at around the same time Silent Hill Revelations 3D came out, or was in promotion, they had also announced that there was going to be the Silent Hill Trail for Halloween Horror Nights in both California and Florida. And that, to me, sounded freaking awesome. As far as I know, that was the very first game to ever get a theming for Halloween Horror Nights. I don't think that there has been since. Or, I'm sorry, before. Since there has been, they did do Resident Evil for at least 2 years after that, if I remember correctly. So after Silent Hill was only 2012, and I know that there was at least 1 year of Resident Evil at Halloween Horror Nights, probably 2 years, and there was also an Alien vs. Predator year, and there have been Alien vs. Predator games, but that's a kind of a fuzzy area. But I would count Alien vs. Predator, because that was a game before it was a movie. So Yeah, lots of coolness there. I'm grateful to YouTube channels like Sharp Productions and Inside the Magic, I think it was, and also Adam the Woo, who basically took footage of that year's Halloween Horror Nights so that people who weren't fortunate enough to, because these are flash in the pans basically. They build those mazes, they work on them for that year, but they're only visible for like a month, maybe a month and a half if you're lucky. Once Halloween's over, whether you're there, whether if you missed it, you're done. And there's no guarantee that theming or that maze is going to be back for the next year. The Walking Dead was a big The Walking Dead and I think Resident Evil were two, not examples, but two or exceptions. That's the word. Probably one of the best videos I saw produced of going through that trail was, ironically enough, produced by G4. Back about 2 or 3 months before G4 just shut itself down. In the interim of everybody basically getting fired from that station, as far as I could tell, or basically just the channel being discontinued, that G4 TV actually was producing some of the finest original content and was rebroadcasting some of their best content from their later years. And when you added those two things together, you actually had a station that I was watching again. And I know I've talked badly about G4 in the past because, let's face it, G4 had many, many years of bad. But sometime around the end of 2012, maybe it was because they all knew they were getting fired, I don't know. But G4's content actually was good. G4's original content was good for a while. And one of the pieces of content that they produced in that span of goodness was a little video that they did of Kristen Adams, one of the former G4 hosts, going through the Silent Hill Halloween Horror Nights maze. I think it was probably the one in California, with the star of Silent Hill 3. It was Silent Hill 3D, with the star of Silent Hill 3D Revelations. And it was hilarious, it was scary, it was awesome, it was funny. I freaking loved it. So props to the two of those girls for braving the maze, because that was two women, for braving that maze, and because that was a great segment. I really enjoyed that segment. And thanks to everybody else that had gotten footage of it, or complete footage of the maze, because I couldn't afford to take a trip down there. I don't live anywhere close to Florida or California, and I hadn't been in California in a while after that. So I remember I haven't gone back to California. I think I went back to California this year for E3, but I remember before then I haven't been to California probably in around 6 or 7 years. So it's been a while. So you could tell, like, going through the maze, I don't know if I want to really describe the maze or my thoughts about it, but you could just tell that everybody that was involved in it had a love, if not of the original source material of the movies. I thought they did a pretty good job recreating some of the content from the movies, but also recreating some of the content from the games. They had the characters from the games there. I don't know what I would have done if I was there and all of a sudden Pyramid Head had jumped out at me. I probably would have curled up into a ball on the floor screaming, "Please don't punish me! Don't punish me!" Might have been slightly more vulgar than that, but this is a kids podcast. We're talking about extreme horror. We're talking about R-rated movies and M-rated games, and I'm saying this is a kids podcast. Okay, we'll not say that. But the downside of that was pretty much after that year, Silent Hill went dark. Maybe it was because the majority of the content that was released in the year of Silent Hill was all pretty much reviewed badly. With the exception of Halloween Horror Nights, which I actually got a kick of. I did see some negative comments about the Halloween Horror Nights maze. Mostly it was, this is more movie than game, and this should have been based more on the games. I won't make those comments. I that didn't really bother me much. I get that. And again, I couldn't be there, so I can't make those comments, and I won't make those comments. But I remember a lot of people didn't like Silent Hill Revelations 3D. I personally was really, 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 I did not like Silent Hill the Silent Hill HD collection, even though the games were fantastic, amazing, great. It was clear that this port was unfinished, unpolished, and buggy. And that was disappointing. And even after they were done patching it, it still had performance issues. How the heck do you have performance issues on a PS2 game? Yes, I know they used incomplete code, but there's no excuse for that again. From what I was told, there were places that they could have gotten the finished code from. They chose not to do those revenues, and that's on management. So Silent Hill 2 basically Silent Hill property kind of went dark for at least a year, maybe 2 years. Then 2014 comes around, and Gamescom 2014 comes around. This was going to be a big deal. I remember this was the first Gamescom that I was really paying close attention to. I remembered finding out that Gamescom was like a super duper big deal. Sometime around 2012 or so, when a lot of games were announced at Gamescom that I thought were very unique and very exciting, like Until Dawn was originally announced at Gamescom 2012, and the digital download game Rain, not Heavy Rain, but Rain, which was a PS3 downloadable title, which I really, really, really loved. I first heard about those games from, the coverage of Gamescom 2012. So I was like, Gamescom 2014, I got to be down for this. I got to check this out because this looks freaking awesome. So my girlfriend and I watched the live feed for Gamescom 2014 because we were curious what was going to be shown. And they announced this thing called PT. Now, PT is going to be a subject that we're going to talk about that has much, much controversy, and that's kind of why I wanted to save it towards the end, both because it's chronological and because of its controversy. We're going to have a lot to say about this. Let's be honest, PT was a stunt, and a good stunt. I'm going to say this right now. I thought it was a really good stunt. Here was this announcement of a game which came from a quote-unquote unknown developer that had the distinction of being you had a playable teaser available at that moment, so you not only were seeing this trailer, but you could also get a hands-on of it. And that's really the way to go in today's day and age when you have a major announcement like that. I'm all for making those kind of announcements. Here's a trailer, and you could play the demo, or you could join the beta right now. I know that there have been a couple of games over the years that have done that sort of thing, but really that's an awesome way to go. I really, really got to give props to developers that go all out with that sort of thing because they're taking a risk. But here comes PT, which on its surface was a game like Gone Home. My friend Twitch would call them walking simulators, but PT gets a bye with that for a couple of reasons. One, I don't consider games like Gone Home to be walking simulators. And two, I thought PT, given what it was, which was essentially supposed to be a teaser, it worked fine. So later on in the day, I download the PT demo and install it onto my PlayStation 4. I don't think I had much of a chance to play it at that point because I was still hanging out with my girlfriend. We were watching the rest of the Gamescom event. So nobody really thought anything about it. I figured, it'd be cool to check out later. By that night, somebody had played it and discovered what we were told was not supposed to be something that was going to be found that quickly. Somebody was doing a live stream of PT, and they had finished it, which was not supposed to be possible at that point. They had somehow triggered the ending sequence. And what finally happened is a live broadcast of the ending to PT went up online a day before they were going to show the Metal Gear Solid 5 preview with Hideo Kojima Q&A. And the whole world saw Norman Reedus walking down a street with his name, Guillermo del Toro's name then come up, and Hideo Kojima's name then come out. And the final sequence saying Silent Hill with an S at the end, Silent Hills. Essentially confirming to the world, probably before it was supposed to, that that there was going to be another Silent Hill game, and that it was going to be developed by Metal Gear Solid creator Hideo Kojima with Hellboy director Guillermo del Toro, who I love, starring Norman Reedus from the Boondock Saints and also that great series on AMC, The Walking Dead. The internet went crazy, and rightfully so. This was not... Now, for people who know the backstory of Kojima Productions and Hideo Kojima, I know the backstory. I've done a lot of research about this, and this is not the first time Kojima's done something like this. Those of you who might remember, what was it, Moby Dick Studios, the whole Moby Dick Studios controversy back, I think it was around 2012 or so, when this company called Moby Dick Studios released this game called The Phantom Pain, or released a trailer for this game called The Phantom Pain, and it was supposed to be this game that nobody really understood. It was supposed to be this new type of game, and it was supposed to look cool, and nobody knew what it was, and there was no real background for Moby Dick Studios itself. And then, of course, we all found out that it was actually that it was pretty clear that leading up to, I think it was GDC that year, that the Phantom Pain was in fact Metal Gear Solid 5, and that the Phantom Pain would be the second half of Metal Gear Solid 5 after Ground Zeroes took place. Which actually was, and I'll be honest with you, that was a great bit of marketing. I really thought that was great. I thought Kojima did a good job with that. Now, I know that Kojima was partially involved with it. I know that it had the internet guessing. A lot of people pretty much made the assumption that it was Metal Gear 5. But still, I remembered listening to some of the MP3s about this. There actually was a podcast discussion with Kojima team after the events of the Phantom Pain revelation had come up, where they basically did they basically let the cat out of the bag, and they told everybody what they had done and what it took to actually pull off that kind of hoax. And essentially they said they had a lot of fun doing it, and that's great, fantastic. If you have fun doing it, and it definitely spurred up some interest, there's nothing wrong with that. So it looked like to me that they were trying to pull this themselves, or that this was going to be a similar trick to that, which, let's be honest, it probably was. As far as I know, Kojima hasn't really talked about this that much. I don't think Guillermo del Toro was directly involved with the PT announcement itself. From what we know, he was involved with Silent Hills, obviously, but I don't know if he knew too much about that debacle. I remember when people were questioning him after Kojima left Konami, he really didn't know too much about it other than the fact that the project was canceled. So I don't know exactly how much he was involved. And now Norman Reedus is actually working on a different game with Kojima Studios, which looks fantastic, by the way. So, what was PT? What was supposed to be PT? PT was, I think, something along the lines of the Phantom Pain. It was basically designed to be as amateur as possible. It was using the Fox engine. The PT demo does use the Fox engine, probably because they had it available, so that's cool. That's powered by the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine. You can check it out. If you play it, that is the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine. The images that they were using were basically, they were trying to make it look as indie as possible. While they knew that they couldn't make the graphics engine look less professional, they could make things look professional. Like the name of the studios, I think, was like the zip code or the area code or something of Kojima's productions. It was like some type of mailing address or something. There was another one with... I know that there were some other people that have talked that is actually a different number, that's supposed to be a code or something like that. That has not been confirmed by anyone. Again, nothing really has been confirmed. So there is a theory that the number sequence for the development studio is in fact a code. From what I've been told by other people, it's actually the mailing address or a number involved with mailing address or a zip code or something. And the other big deal is the picture. I think it was just a picture, like a high resolution picture taken in the backyard of somebody's house for the loading image. So again, they did everything they could to make it look like it was non-professionally done. I think maybe they were trying to do it maybe they're trying to updo. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to updo the Phantom Pain teaser. But it worked. But somebody had triggered it early. They thought it was going to take, and Kojima had admitted that he was hoping that it was going to take like a worldwide effort to unlock it. But he still admitted that it is something that was going to be in production, and that he was very proud of the work that he was already doing. They were going to work on that after Metal Gear Solid 5. Well, you guys know that after the major production of Metal Gear Solid 5 ceased, Kojima left Konami. Was he out? Was he fired? Did he leave of his own free will? I'll leave that up to if I ever do a follow-up for the Metal Gear Solid podcast, which I have gotten lots of requests for doing, and I am considering doing. So I won't go into that speculation here, but needless to say, that meant the end of Silent Hills. Silent Hills, unfortunately, is now dead. So much so that Konami actually spitefully had it removed from the PlayStation Store, so more people who own PlayStation 4s now cannot download it, and people who have deleted it or have it on PlayStation 4s that broke cannot re-download it, unfortunately, which is unfortunate, extremely unfortunate. What does that mean for the future of Silent Hills? I told you that whole story basically to transition into what I feel is the future of Silent Hill, or what. And this is how I usually, and also give my opinions about this. Well, it's not impossible that another Silent Hill project may go into development. Konami has not really shown the want, desire, or capability to work on any future projects, which is just, it seems like they're only interested right now with either licensing stuff out that they can make a quick buck on, or pachinko. From insider information, again, I have no actual independent confirmation of this, but according to several people that spoke on a case of anonymity, Konami doesn't really have much of a care about their legacy, or I have no evidence of that or confirmation of those statements. However, given Konami's business practices over the past 5 or 6 years, that doesn't seem like a profound statement for me to make. So I will reiterate that statement, even if it can't be attributed to a source speaking on the record. It's clear this is based upon Konami's business practices and things like letting Kojima go, or the release schedule for the recent, for the games that they've actually bothered to release over the years, and for the unfinished state under which some of their major titles were. The moving from Team Silent to other developers. That decision, I don't know. They were bad decisions, I'll say that. Financially, these decisions were all bad for them. That's not I don't feel that's a controversial statement for me to make. The Silent Hill games that were released after Silent Hill 4, which were not developed by Team Silent, have been considered critically and financially less successful than the ones developed by Team Silent. What does that tell you? People didn't like this. There were people that didn't like the recent Silent Hill releases. People are very angry with Konami for not releasing Silent Hills, and for pulling PT off the PlayStation Network store. What is the future of Silent Hill? Silent Hills, unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever see it. I really don't. Kojima may eventually talk about it, but my guess is he's probably under NDA. So that's probably why he hasn't spoken out about it or said what was involved with the project or what was going to be involved with the project. My guess is he's probably under a non-disclosure agreement, so he probably can't talk about it. That's not to say I don't think there'll ever be another Silent Hill game again. Because I do. I do think probably in my lifetime, and probably in your lifetime, I think that there probably will be another Silent Hill game. Why? Because that franchise is far too well known. It's far too popular. And management doesn't last forever. Existing management doesn't last forever. I'm just guessing this, but my guess is that it's the current management of Konami right now that's probably running it into the ground. But that having, and again, I have no actual inside sources. I'm just looking at what their revenue streams are based upon the decisions that they've made since, 2001 or so. Which is, I see bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. You can't blame the developers for that. That's management at that point. So, management does change. I'm not saying people are fired, but new people do come in. At some point, Konami is going to get somebody that's going to be managing it that actually has a respect for, or at least some understanding, at least better understanding of their properties than the current management. In which case, I think that a new Silent Hill game will be made. That's just me being optimistic, I admit this. And I don't know if you feel as optimistic as I do. From what I've read online, people are not optimistic. Even die-hard Silent Hill fans are not optimistic, especially after what happened with Silent Hills, or PT. As for short-term gains, if Konami really just wanted to make money in the short term, as far as I'm concerned, all they would have to do would be pull what they did with the Metal Gear Solid collection just before the release of Metal Gear Solid 4, which was they re-released Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Metal Gear Solid 3. Basically just re-released them on PS1, the original discs. And they sold and they made a killing. So, if you ask me, if Konami just wanted to make money, I know that there are plenty of PS2s still available out there, and people still have PS2s. They're still working. The PS1s still work, as far as I know. And the ones that don't, PS3s pretty much play all PS1 discs. PS2s play pretty much all PS1 discs, even though the memory cards, you'll need an original memory card. But PS3s don't have that problem because you can just make virtual memory cards. So yeah, I think that if Konami wanted to at least make money, what would be nice would be to just simply re-release those original discs. I would buy them in a second, and I know that there are a lot of people out there, game collectors, that would buy those in a second. So, I don't know. Go figure with that one. I wasn't meaning for this particular podcast to be as long or as downer as I thought it would be, but I feel like this is just something that needs to be talked about. I really do feel like this is a product that basically, it's the fandom of others that has rubbed off on me. I don't think I would have as much of a love for Silent Hill if I didn't see some of the great, wonderful creations made by the online community about Silent Hill in general. So, go figure with that one. I don't know what I have planned for you guys next, but I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. I didn't mean for it to be as long as it is, but we had a lot to cover. And I wanted to say thank you for listening, and please visit my website, gameaccess.net. So, please post your comments about what you think the future of Silent Hill is. Until next time, guys, my name is Maniac with gameaccess.net. Take care. Over and out.